Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing.
Thank you. Welcome to the hybrid meeting of full council. Can I ask everyone please to mute their microphones at all times unless invited to speak by myself. Members should be mindful that microphones when switched on are sensitive and may broadcast other conversations being held in the vicinity. I would also ask members when it's their turn to speak into their microphones so that they can be clearly heard by those in the chamber and those listening at home. I have some opening announcements. First of all, I want to express my sympathy at the passing of Mr. Ian Millen, who passed suddenly on the 28th of September. Ian was indeed a larger-than-life character around this borough, and indeed far beyond the borough. Although a renowned undertaker for many years, Ian was a lot more than that. His involvement, especially in repatriations of persons who died abroad, was well known, and his expertise in that field brought him in connection with many families who found themselves in dire need. Ian was much more than an undertaker. His friendly, easygoing manner ingratiated him to many. I first met Ian 30 years ago when, unknown to many, he worked quietly as a peace builder, trying to bring communities together at a very difficult time. The last time I met Ian was in the summer when Glenavon played a friendly with an East German team. And Ian was a Glenavon director and was there in the thick of the day and loving it all. To his family, I extend my sympathy at this time to the loss of a good man. Moving on then, can I congratulate Joanne Harris of Knitted Knockers, who has just won the UTV Pride of Britain Award for Fundraiser of the Year. Joanne is known to me being a Lurgan woman, and it is an absolutely fantastic achievement and well deserved, and I hope to meet with Joanne very shortly to congratulate her personally on this remarkable achievement. Council attended the Catalyst Invent Awards on the 23rd of October at ICC in Belfast. The Invent Awards celebrate Northern Ireland's most exciting entrepreneurs and innovations, giving them an international platform and support to make the greatest impact. We were delighted that Lorcan McShane, a student from the Borough studying with the Ulster University, received the runner-up award for Student Invent with his innovation Optimal. Optimal is a web app that uses computer vision to give real-time form and performance feedback on exercise videos, helping athletes, trainers and gym goers to improve technique and reduce injury risk. This is a fantastic achievement as competition for these prestigious awards was fierce. On behalf of Council, I want to wish Lorcan every success with his innovative product. Lorcan and his product Optimal are undoubtedly a talent and an innovation to watch out for in the future. Speaking personally, in my role, I've been engaged with many groups and organisations over the past month. I've hosted many, including just a few: Laurelvale Cricket Club, St John the Baptist Nursery in Portadown, Mount Norris Women's Institute, Edgarstown Accordion Band, who will next Saturday take part in the Lord Mayor's Parade in London. A great honour indeed. And also I was thrilled to meet the Waleses on their visit recently to Longmeadow Cider, owned by the McKeever family in Portadown. I know it was a red letter day for the McKeevers and for everyone else who was involved, and I would congratulate the McKeever family on their excellent business, their cider business in Portadown. Moving on then, again, due to strong winds forecast from 7 p.m. on Thursday, the 30th of October, the annual fireworks display at Craigavon Lakes has had to be cancelled. In line with health and safety guidance received by this council and acting on the advice of the fireworks company, this event has now been rescheduled to Wednesday night at 7:30, Wednesday the 29th, so it's one day earlier. We apologise for any inconvenience this may cause and appreciate your understanding in this matter. Okay, moving on then, agenda item 1, apologies. I have apologies from Councillor Joy Ferguson and Alderman Margaret Tinsley. Are there any others? Councillor Hockingham.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to let you know, Councillor Ashley Mallon is on her way, so she shouldn't be too long.
Thank you for that. I would advise members that we have no other members at this point in time remotely. Okay. Moving to agenda item 2, council minutes. Can I have a proposer and a seconder that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 22nd of September taken as read and approved as a correct record? Proposed by Councillor McClellan, seconded by Councillor Hockingham, and agreed. Are we all agreed to adopt the decisions contained in the minutes and happy to move on? Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Can we take these as the meeting progresses, or is there anyone who at this stage wishes to raise an item? Agenda item 4 is a presentation from the DFI Roads Service on their annual report. I'd like to welcome the following officers in attendance tonight from DFI Roads: Cindy Noble, Acting Divisional Roads Manager, and Kieran McKenna, Section Engineer for the Armagh area. You're both very welcome, wherever you are. Okay, thank you. Okay, and Cindy will let you kick off then, okay?
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity to present the DFI Roads Annual Report. My name is Cindy Noble and I am the Acting Divisional Roads Manager for Southern Division. Also with me tonight is Kieran McKenna, Section Engineer for the Armagh area. I hope you all have received a copy of the annual report, which details the works completed across the Borough last year and sets out our initial proposals for this year. Infrastructure plays an important part to everyday lives, contributing to addressing regional imbalance and delivering positive change for all as we invest for future generations. The road network is our largest and most valuable strategic infrastructure asset and delivers for people every day. It is, however, recognised that there is more to do to improve and protect the network, and we are maximising our resources to deliver positive engineering impacts for our roads. This year's budget allocation is again very challenging. Whilst there is a welcome increase of 77.6 million from the opening 24-25 resource budget, it does not fully meet the requirements of the department, and therefore decisions on prioritising the budget have been made. This means the continued use of a limited service policy for essential road maintenance activities such as defect repair, grass cutting and gully emptying. The opening capital budget for structural maintenance is 68 million, which falls significantly short of our funding requirements. So we will focus on safety-related, high-priority resurfacing, roadside stability and drainage projects. This year, as you will see in the report, we have completed carriageway resurfacing schemes on the Banbridge Road in Lurgan, Darkley Road in Keady and Money Slane in Catesbridge. More recently, a carriageway resurfacing scheme was also completed on the Armagh Road in Keady. This year, additional resurfacing schemes are planned across the district on Newry Road in Tandragee and the Ballycrummy Road in Armagh. We also have some capital budget for local transport safety measures. This allows us to deliver a programme of local improvements, including collision remedial measures, traffic calming and pedestrian crossings. However, our capacity to deliver this programme is less than what we would like, so we do need to prioritise those schemes that are most in need. This year we have also completed projects such as the installation of drop curbs and tactile paviours at several locations around Drumlin Drive and Morn Road in Lurgan. This year we will be taking forward the installation of a new puffin crossing on the Dungannon Road in Portadown and puffin upgrades at Francis Street and North Street in Lurgan. Road safety is a high priority for the department, and we are committed to working proactively to make our roads safer for everyone. The introduction of part-time 20-mile-per-hour zones at schools is a significant intervention that has helped to ensure that children, parents and staff feel safer as they travel to and from school on a daily basis. In June of this year, the Minister confirmed that an additional 40 schools will benefit from this key road safety measure. Within the report, you will note the 3 schools within this council area prioritised for this year. The Department continues to develop our Transport Strategy 2035, the public consultation for which closed last month. The strategy will inform the planning and delivery of transport infrastructure across Northern Ireland up to 2035 and aims to align transport infrastructure with the requirements of climate change to deliver net zero by 2050. The decarbonisation of transport is likely to be the single largest strategic driver of our work over the next decade, which the strategy will aim to support. The Department recognises the importance of investing in pedestrian and cycling infrastructure, and the public consultation on the Active Travel Delivery Plan closed at the end of February 2025, and the plan is expected to be published later this year. The plan will provide a firm basis for the delivery of walking, wheeling and cycling infrastructure in our villages, towns and cities over the next 10 years and beyond. In the meantime, we are continuing to deliver improved active travel projects and have completed an upgrade of the Cherry Path segregated cycle footpath, and we are currently on site completing a further upgrade of the path network at Barbary Walk, linking Drumgower Centre to Drumgower Road. Winter is coming and we are now gearing up for gritting, which starts this month and extends to April. In this council area, we have a fleet of 10 gritters to salt 948 kilometres of main roads. Finally, we are keen to engage with electorate representatives. However, we are facing significant staffing pressures and we are having to focus our attention on public safety issues in the first instance. Public safety is our paramount priority. I have included contact details on the back of the report for each of our teams. To maximise our effectiveness, I would encourage councillors and the public to report road defects using our online service, which is a direct link into our systems, rather than emailing us directly. Thank you, and that concludes my presentation of the report.
Okay, thank you for that, Cindy. I have some member questions. I'm going to bring in Alderman Mark Baxter first.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for the report. And thank you to your staff throughout the year. You have to listen to those emails that maybe you don't want us to send now whenever we're talking about putting it through the system. And we do use the system, and I use it quite a bit. But I suppose the question I have, and it's a question that I had last year and probably the year before as well. In your annual report there, it talks about gully emptying. In 2025-26, as in the previous year, the Department currently aims to maintain the level of service and inspect and clean where necessary all gullies once annually. Can I just ask, if you're doing it once annually, we have this problem every autumn, and every autumn, as an elected representative, my phone starts to ring about gullies being full with leaves right across the Borough, in particular Warringstown and Donaghcloney, the areas I represent. And then when you have a spell of rain, like we did the other day, then you have the flooding in terms of that. So when you're inspecting the gullies, is that done at a particular time throughout the year, or is there extra resources put in to emptying gully at autumn time whenever the leaves are probably an added problem? Is there a specific different time that you do that as well, or maybe just tease that out a bit for me? Thank you.
Thank you. As you said, the Department aims to inspect and, where necessary, clean all our gullies once a year. And obviously, given the level of the infrastructure that we have across the Borough, it's not possible to always be time that most effectively. We do then also respond through the PIP system. If you put a request in through the online reportal system that there is a particular issue with a gully, that's added to the next routine schedule at the most convenient time to do that. So that's trying to create that efficiency there, that we do try and get around the whole of the network in the most efficient manner.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thanks for the response. And I suppose that's where the frustration lies, because it's every year it's the same thing. you're getting 2 or 3 phone calls maybe a week about block gullies because of leaves. Surely now we've recognised it's a problem, that it shouldn't be up to elected representatives maybe to put that through the system. Surely, you know, DFA should know, you know what, it's autumn time, there's been a heavy spell of wind, there's leaves everywhere and gullies are blocked, without relying on elected representatives to put that through members of the public. Surely it should be a matter of course that every autumn it's going to be an issue.
We have a scheduled routine maintenance which allows us to make sure that we are on the network to be able to empty the gullies at least once a year. So that's scheduled, so that's every gully essentially is inspected and emptied at least once a year. But when you're dealing with over 90,000 gullies, it's impossible to do them all within, you know, a certain period of time before the autumn when the leaves will fall. So we try and develop our programs to the most efficient time, but that essentially means is that we have to develop a program based on the resources that our contractors have to be able to empty 90,000 gullies within a certain time period. So you can't do that in a matter of weeks. It's obviously extended into a number of months to be able to get around the whole of the network.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker is Councillor McElrath.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Cindy, for your report, and also the news of an increased budget, albeit maybe not what we all would want, but certainly it's good to see an increase there. Can I also put in record my thanks to the local staff as well, and particularly to Alwyn, that is very helpful across the Portdown area when contacted. There's a couple of wee issues, but one that's still, it's like Alderman Baxter here bringing something that's been raised before, but one of the issues I see across the area is warning signage on our roads, and particularly some of our minor roads, badly overgrown in hedgeways. Not sure who's responsible, but the sign was put there for a reason, and if they can't be seen, then we need to be taking some sort of proactive action if we can at all. So that's just something, it's an ongoing issue, Cindy, but it kind of leads me on to my final kind of point or observation, and that's to do, you talked about public safety a lot there and about remedial action on roads and so on. I have a huge issue across my DEA, and I'm sure beyond in some of the other areas, and that's accident black spots on our A-class roads, our main roads, roads that have been identified clearly as issues, multiple accidents, and I think in particular of the Dungannon Road, particularly in the area of Wright's Filling Station. That's been raised by a number of representatives, and also the Machan Road at Haldane and Fishers, some bad accidents there recently, and outside of my DEA road that I use quite often is the main Armagh Road at Gosford at Market Hill with multiple junctions, and I know that's been requested. And what really sticks in my craw a wee bit, Cindy, is that when there was an area identified, namely the Dublin on the main Armagh Portdown Road some years ago with serious accidents, we were able to reduce the speed limit to 50 miles an hour from 60 to 50 there on a small section, and the worth of that is untold. That used to be, there was an accident there practically every week, and I'm not saying there can't be now, but it's been reduced dramatically. So why can we not do small sections of these really bad black spots? There's no other country in the world probably would allow this to continue, and I know perhaps it's above your pay grade, and if I sound frustrated, well, I am, because I did a little bit of research, and Freedom of Information response from the Southern Thrust tells me that 3,000 people treated in the last 12 months in the Southern Thrust as a result of road traffic collisions, and 4 to 5 of those people are detained, around about almost 20 detained for treatment every week in the Southern Trust. So if we can reduce that in any way, I think we should be looking at it. And I mean, members across the chamber can probably relate to main roads, A-class roads in their areas that could do with the speed reduction. And we have done it. We have done it in my area, but why not some of the other areas? So that's a bit of a bugbear of mine at the moment. And again, as I say, it might be above your level. We're raising it with the Minister as well, and with the department. So, but it's just something I think we could do cheaply, It's not something that we need to spend tens of thousands on, but it can have a dramatic reduction, and that's the point. Saving lives, saving injuries on our roads, and reducing the pressure on our hospitals as well. So we just want to make that point, Cindy.
Thank you, Councillor Lavelle. Councillor McElrath, a point well made, and you went through the three-minute limit there, and never mind the 50-mile-an-hour limit. But let that be a warning to everyone else as well. Cindy, we'll bring you back in again.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. As I said in the report, road safety is a priority. And just to answer your question, there is going to be, probably before the end of the year, a consultation with regards to a speed limit review. That will look, it's really a part of the coordinated measures that the Minister and the Department are looking at to deal with not only just what engineering measures, but what we can do in relation to contribute to society issues with regards to road speeding. So there's going to be a consultation that will look at speed limits, whether they're appropriate in rural areas. It will also look possibly at speed limits for, is there an appetite for reducing speed limits for HGVs? And also the part-time 20s that we have at our schools. Is there an appetite and a feeling that 20-mile-an-hour zones could be extended beyond schools and residential areas? So there will be a consultation paper, as I said, probably coming within the next, before the end of this calendar year, that will look at speeding, a speed limit review. And as you said, it's been done in other jurisdictions and has proven quite successful. But it's also, you know, speeding is not just about engineering measures. It's society's attitude to speeding as well, where it's appropriate. And that's one of the purposes behind the consultation paper, to see that, you know, because we're all personally responsible to making sure that we drive to the speed limit. In relation to engineering measures, one of the things that Southern Division is currently doing is that we are looking at our collision remedial sites, and that's sites where there has been 3 or more accidents in 4 calendar years. And in this division, I think we're up to about 200 of those sites. So we're prioritising those currently. We're doing what we call a cluster review of those sites to see if there are similar causation factors in those locations, and if there are things, engineering measures that we can do that would reduce that. And obviously then they would be prioritised, and they would be reviewed on a cost benefit as well, to see, you know, is it affordable to be able to deliver. Some of them are quite significant engineering solutions that you may get. But at the present, we're currently going through those 200 sites and prioritising for the division, and then looking to see, can we take some of those forward. But at the minute, our budgets are very limited, so it'll be on the basis of maybe 1 or 2 per year, depending on the funds. But things like Lisnagade Crossroads, that's one of those sites, and that's how we're able to try and develop programmes and designs that are appropriate for those locations, and trying to solve, looking at the causation factors in those accidents, and looking to see what engineering measures we can. In that case, the staggered crossroads is probably the most appropriate engineering solution. So that will be taken forward. As I said, there's over 200 locations within the whole of Southern Division currently.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker is Councillor Jude Mallon.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Cindy, for your report. Yeah, Moorland Footbridge, yes, looking good. But the last clinic, I asked when would it be open. I was told late summer. It's now ending October. Coming up to fireworks night, and that bridge is used for people walking to and fro. Probably the busiest time it's been used, but still not opened. What is the hold up? Do you know?
Moorland Footbridge, as you know, Moorland Footbridge, as you know, we've had a replacement project. We've had a new bridge designed, and it's substantially complete at present. I understand that there is a number of snagging, we would call, with the site, and those are expected to be completed within the next week. So the bridge will open, it'll be a soft opening essentially, within the next week or so, when those are when those snags are completed. We are currently also on site completing an upgrade of the connecting path, which will run from the old concrete road to the edge of the properties there. That is expected to take 8 weeks, and then that work will be completed so that essentially you'll have an upgrade of the whole of the path from St Anthony side of the footpath right the way over to the new footbridge. And then we hope all those works will be completed by mid-December time. But the bridge will be open, and what we're going to do is work either side so that the bridge can be opened and we can have a pedestrian walkway through, so we're not leaving the bridge on open for that. So hopefully within 2 weeks the bridge will be opened.
Thank you. The next speaker is Alderman Paul Berry.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Cindy and Kieran and the team. I had spoke to you at the clinic there and give you an earful of things that I wish to see done, if possible. I think it's down to the staffing issues, Cindy, that we as councillors, I know myself, find has come up to be a big problem, because there are many times we report issues nearly on a daily basis, and you know the message is coming back: we don't have the staff, we don't have the staff. Now, I'm over 20 years in local government, and I must say over this past number of years this has probably been the worst time in public life for reporting issues to road service, and it's not a personal thing, it's more something that we have experienced. And I would just maybe like you to outline you know, the current staffing problems that are there, because it used to be when we would have reported potholes or road defects, within a short period of time those would have been dealt with and treated. But now the general public are coming back to us nearly questioning us. Have we even reported the potholes, or have we reported the defects, because of the long period of time that it's taken, or the potholes are getting bigger and more cars are getting damaged? And as one road service member of staff quickly pointed out to me one time, that I had told him about a particular road and there was potholes and there was a lot of damage. Oh, but that's coming out of a different budget. And to me, that's not the mindset that should exist within a public body. It should be a case of trying to get it dealt with. So I'd just like maybe you to outline the current problems that are there. Under page 11, I'll stick to the report, Lord Mayor. Under page 11, under street lighting, and I know, Cindy, I've raised this with you, but I want to raise it on public record in relation to, I know thankfully there's replacements for 10 locations across the borough, which obviously is very welcome, but there's one particular area, Trotter's Walk in Tandragee, which has been a public path for over 60 years, and the lights have, down through those years, become defective, and I, along with Alderman Wilson, have raised this matter, and I know there was a site meeting last week with Joseph O'Neill in relation to the need for replacement on this location. Now, it's one of those that goes back many, many years, and DFI's attitude is that, our position is that they don't maintain it. Council doesn't maintain it. Yes, it's swept by us, but there's street lights on it owned by DFI, and I'm asking you tonight to consider looking at adopting this footpath in conjunction with the council that leads down into the recreation centre, and having those street lights replaced, because it is a public path. It has been used for many, many years, and you yourself in your report mentioned about promoting very much the active travel. And this is part of the active travel, where this is getting people out, people who I know who are retired, who walk this route on a constant basis. And I'm just asking if that could be considered, if there's some rural fund or some other fund that we all could avail of, that we work in partnership. So I'm asking if we could sit around the table and see how we get this matter resolved, because listening to Mr O'Neill tonight, his attitude was we're taking the street lights out. I know the councillors for the Crucier area would be utterly devastated, and we would be inundated with calls from people who would be demanding that these lights be reinstated. So I'm asking for us to enter into discussion on that. And last but not least, on the collision remedial measures, I'm glad that there's improvements there, because I'm only saying to you, more recent reports that I have reported to road service in relation to accidents have happened on more than 1, 2 or 3 occasions at certain locations: Tandragee Road, Market Hill, the Unshina Lane on the main A27 heading towards Portadown. And the message has been coming back from your department, reported to the PSNI, and it's basically, we'll wash our hands off. And I find that unacceptable. And I have spoke to your colleague here this evening, who is prepared to take it up and look at some of those cases again. But that's what we have been getting back over recent times, reported to the PSNI, and it has become quite frustrating, because there has been accidents again, and I want to keep my conscience clear that I have reported them, but it is quite frustrating to find that they don't go anywhere beyond an email where there's nobody named at the bottom of it, so you can't even go back to. So thank you very much, and I would ask for consideration on that. But I'd like to hear about the staffing. Thank you, Cindy.
Okay, thank you. In relation to the staffing, currently within Southern Division, we have approximately 170 staff, and we have 40-something vacancies. So we're currently sitting at a vacancy rate of about 27%, which aligns right across the department, which I think currently the department is about 31% vacancy rate. But obviously that vacancy rate, it goes in line in hand with a very aged population or workforce as well. So we're looking ahead and seeing that, you know, the situation isn't an improving situation. So really it's a twofold approach in terms of capacity and capability. One of the things that you'll see is that the DFI have a policy workforce plan, and it's looking at measures in which we can recruit more but also train our workforce. And the other thing that we're also looking at, and you will see coming on board probably within the next 12 months, is we're looking at reorganising an operational delivery project that will look at how we deliver and what we deliver and how best we can deliver. And that's root and branch, looking at all the functions. And unfortunately for roads, essentially, a lot of the stuff we do is embedded in legislation. We have a statutory responsibility to do a lot of these things. So it's looking about, traditionally we would have used an awful lot of professional and technical staff. A lot of our staff are very highly qualified, which means we're competing in a market which those skills are well needed, and we can't compete maybe on that level of things. But what we're looking at is our recruitment processes. Can they be prioritised? So we targeted those vacancies that we need those skills, looking at skilling people up so that we can see ahead that if we need somebody that has a particular skill for traffic signals, which is, or even looking at collision remedial type work, how we can have a sustainable workforce that's developed and can tackle all of those skills that we need. So there are projects ongoing right up to a very high level within the department, right up to the Deputy Secretary and the Permanent Secretary, looking at the vacancy levels, and then how can we restructure and how can we give our staff tools and develop our staff to be able to do those things that we need. And as I said, I think you'll see within the next 12 months, an operational model that is very, very different from what traditionally we've had, which is currently, based within Southern Division, 4-area based model. It may look something completely different in the next 12, 18 months.
Yeah. Thank you. We currently have 8 speakers wanting to come in. Can I ask and appeal to members try and be succinct in their questioning? Next speaker is Councillor Catherine Nelson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Cindy and her staff for their report. I suppose I'm going to vent a bit of a frustration about what I see as a real underinvestment in both the Craigavon central area and the rural area of Derrymacash and Derrytrasna. And I say that because not only do I read the annual reports, but I recently read all 5 for the past 5 years side by side, and I could see that these 2 areas are massively underinvested in when compared to other areas of our council. Cindy will know that I did request to meet with her to discuss that, because I believe that that's a strategic decision. It's an operational decision being made at management level. It's not for the clinics. Unfortunately, I was refused that opportunity to meet with Cindy, and I find that disheartening. It's not my experience of 10 years of politics and ever having been refused a meeting with the divisional manager, and to have to write to the minister in order to secure a bit of your time, I thought was disappointing, and if I'm being very honest, is reflective of the disdain with which I think management at DFI hold elected reps in this area. And indeed the disdain with which the central Craigavon and the Derrymacash and Derrytrasna areas are treated. I'm going to illustrate that because I don't say that without evidence. I know I only have a few minutes, so I won't be able to give all examples. But for 10 years, I have campaigned for works on the Derrymacash Road, one of the worst roads in the borough, beside a bustling village, the main road to the chapel, to the school, to the shop, to the GA club. And the only reason I recently got very basic patch-up work done to that road was because I began a petition. And the petition started to gain traction, and I then all of a sudden got my meeting with officials on site and a little bit of work done, not fully satisfactory but better than what it was. Back in May, I reported the overgrowth of the only footpath in Derrytrasna, the main footpath, again linking the chapel, the school, the GA club. Reported it in May as overgrown, forcing people, including mothers with prams, people in wheelchairs, out onto a busy stretch of road. Come September, myself and Councillor Jude Mallon decided we'd just do it ourselves, and indeed that's what we did. Back in November 24, I requested a speed reduction in the Silverwood Road of Craigavon. That remains outstanding. I did get an email today, bit of a coincidence with DFI officials of Southern Division appearing tonight. I have reported a footpath in Melrose where an elderly lady took a fall. That's now 6 months. It's white lined. That's the extent of it. There's no speed camming done at all, as far as I'm aware, in the whole of the borough. Yet when I compare Southern Division to Northern, Western, Eastern, speed camming is very regular. The introduction of ramps to help with road safety concerns is the norm, but not here. Killen Lane illustrates the example of the 15,637 utility works carried out in our borough this year. That's just this year, of which 2,975 only have been inspected, 44% of which have been unsatisfactory. Killen Lane people are very proud people that look after their area. Their footpath, their only footpath, has been dug up and it has been restored to a really poor condition. Officials have been out on site. I did manage to secure that, but I've been told, well, we'll not do anything about it now because maybe at some point we'll resurface the whole of the footpath. If you take a drive around Craigavon, you'll see very few traffic lights. It's actually shocking. So our children's walk to school is much dangerous than other areas. And just finally as well, just to illustrate how we treat our children and this idea of safer routes to school, I reported a hedge near a primary school back in October 2024, and it took me countless emails, phone calls, press releases to get that hedge cut back in June 2025. So I'm sorry if I do sound frustrated, Cindy, but I do believe these decisions are being taken at an operational level. I don't come to the clinics because I think they're a waste of time. Nothing comes out of them any more than me logging things on the system. I log everything on the portal. I don't do individual emails. I've took that feedback off you, but I don't get anywhere further with it and I don't get any better results. So I'm disappointed, I am frustrated, and I just really at this stage have lost all hope in the Southern Division area of DFI.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. I'm sorry that you feel like that. I can assure you that my staff work tirelessly across all of the division. And take, for example, your traffic calming. If you look at the reports from the Ards, North Down, the Newry Mourne District Council area, I think there's one traffic calming scheme in the whole of Southern Division. And that's a reflection of what we can afford to deliver within this division. And as I say, what we're trying to do is trying to prioritise those safety issues on those sites that have the highest priority. I think that the clinics that we offer in this borough are very worthwhile, and we do give a response back to all of those issues that are raised, and I'm happy to take any of those and give you a response on them individually if that's what you prefer, you know.
Okay, the next speaker is Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. A couple of very specific questions to start with. Councillor Mallon has already brought up Moylan Footbridge. Pleased to hear that it is going to open, although slightly later than initially planned. There are two other bridges, the Maple Bridge and the bridge leading over to Parkmore. I believe there is work scheduled on both of those bridges. I would just like to know what the repairs consist of, and is there any sort of plan or timeline to get that work done? And then I'd just like to kind of pick up on some of the points already raised about speed and particularly kids walking to school. And it's something I've raised on quite a few roads around the area, and again you get the same kind of response back around so many accidents on the road, all this, basically the same stuff over and over again. And I mean, we're told every year that safety is, you know, the highest priority, but you know, where does ignoring elected reps, ignoring residents, where does that come into safety prioritisation, because the people who know these roads best are the people who live there. They're the people who send their children walking down these footpaths every morning to school. And maybe the speed limits on some of these roads made sense 15 years ago, but what you've seen in Portadown in particular over the last 15 years are thousands and thousands of new houses being built, and they stretch back beyond maybe where there were 30-mile-an-hour speed zones. And I get what you're saying about the consultation, and I do look forward to that, and maybe some of the ideas around extending 20-mile-an-hour speed zones. But we're at the point now where on some of these roads, houses extend into 40-mile-an-hour zones, and children are walking on footpaths whenever cars are coming from. There's one road in particular where there's a very short period of a 40-mile-an-hour zone, but it's about 300 metres away from the 30-mile-an-hour zone. There's a 60-mile-an-hour zone. And cars come up that way too quickly. And I've raised this on a number of roads time and time again, and you get the same response back time and time again. And as I said, the people who know these roads best are the people who live there. And it's just not acceptable. And you talk about, things like black spots where there's 3 accidents and stuff like that. 1 accident on a road where there are children walking to school is not acceptable. I mean, is it a case that you're actually asking for a bad accident on a road where there's, basically small children walking to school, where potentially there could be, like someone dying on one of these roads in the morning? Because if that's what it takes to get a speed limit change, then something's really broken here in the system. And again, it just comes back to not listening to elected reps, not listening to the people who live in these areas. We're really asking for a speed limit change. It's not something that's going to take, lots and lots of effort and lots of work over a long period of time. It's just a new sign, really, at the end of the day. That's the practical implication of what this is. And I just can't wrap my head around why it almost feels like we're just having a battle with you year after year after year. And as I say, we're the people who are elected to represent these areas. We're the people who live in these areas as well. We just need you to listen to us, really. That's really it. Thank you.
Thank you. I can assure you that we do listen. Unfortunately, with regards to speed limits, it is a legislative process, so it's not just a situation where you can go out and put a sign up the next day. It has to go through a legislative process, and that involves consultation with the community, consultation with the police as well, and it does, unfortunately, how we prioritise these things. It's not a case of we're waiting for accidents, it's a case of the accident figures. And one of the comments made earlier about you keep asking us to report the accidents is because the accident statistics we go on are the accidents supplied by the PSNI. So if accidents are going unreported, they're not appearing in any of the statistics that we use for our analysis. But speed limits are one of the things that we think, that we are currently reviewing, and the consultation process that will go out this year will look at these things, and hopefully will make it easier to assess speed limits and look and see whether, at the minute 30-mile-an-hour zones are zones where essentially you have street lights, and that's that's something that happened with the legislative change a number of years ago. And maybe by saying that, well, all residential areas a 20-mile-an-hour zone, that could happen. Something quite generic as that could happen maybe following this consultation process. But it needs buy-in from everybody. It's not just from the department. It also needs buy-in from everybody that's driving those roads. Our speed limit criteria is set. It depends on the environment. It depends on the number of vulnerable pedestrians. It depends on the trips. So is it outside schools? Is it outside community facilities? All of those things go into our assessment, and that, I think, will probably fall into part of this review as well. Is you have to have a speed limit that's appropriate to the environment. You talk about going from a 60 to a 40 to a 30. There's absolutely no point in putting a 30-mile-an-hour zone if you don't have that built-up environment, because people don't drive to it. It has to make sense as well. So it's about bringing that sense and what's appropriate to drive in a residential area. It's making everybody understand that 20-mile-an-hour, whilst there may be a 30-mile-an-hour at the minute, 20-mile-an-hour is probably the most appropriate speed. So hopefully, our criteria and our whole assessment process, and also what society wants in terms of speed limits, will be part of this whole consultation process, and we can see that that things may change, and maybe some of the things that your constituencies are bringing up in terms of what they want, they'll be more easier, and they can see how they can be delivered.
The next speaker is Councillor Keith Radcliffe.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thanks, Cindy, for the report, and Kieran there sitting beside you. I can sense the frustration in the chamber tonight with elected representatives, and there is a lot of frustration. Cindy, could I just pick up on one thing that Alderman Barry's already discussed, because I had constituents talking to me also about Trotter's Walk, especially just at the end of the week, and I was going to have a chat with the Cúisir councillors here in the chamber tonight about a way forward. So I think we need an answer to what Alderman Barry had asked you earlier, if you could have an answer for that there. Please, what way we're going to go forward with that, because I believe it's a health and safety issue. It's dark at night and there's a lot of constituents using that path, so if we could have an answer to that there first of all. The other thing that I wanted to bring up and ask was Table 16, the safer routes for the schools. You said about an appetite for speed limits and different things. Myself, along with other Cúisir councillors, in fact all four of us, have raised and highlighted Market Hill High School. The Mawan Road there is an extremely fast stretch of road. Now, I'm thankful and grateful for the schools there that have already got the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits introduced there. I think that's good, it's a way forward. But Market Hill High School is an extremely fast part of the road, There's already been accidents on that road. The primary school, there was an accident last year. Luckily enough, nothing serious injuries were prevented, but a child got knocked down. I'm hoping that the pedestrian crossing will go forward with that. But we've already, and I'd like to thank council officers here, have forwarded a letter to the Minister. All four of us have already contacted the Minister regarding this road. And I have to agree with Councillor Alexander here. The local people know these stretches of the roads better than anybody. And there's been a lot of near misses on that road. And I really believe that the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit should be covered by all schools in Northern Ireland, right across the board. I really, really do, because the country areas often are not looked at all, because there's tractors, there's huge amounts of traffic goes along this road. There's a mart on out the road as well, so it's an extremely fast stretch of the road and very, very busy. So I would ask, please, if you could get in touch with the Minister also and put pressure on to get this school a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit on it. And I really do believe, and I know it'll take legislation from Stormont or whatever, but I really do believe every single school in Northern Ireland should be a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's too late whenever a child's knocked down and killed, and we have to do everything in our power to try to prevent that. Thank you.
Thank you. On relation to Trotter's Lane, where there's the issue with the streetlights, as we spoke to Alderman Barry, that path was not adopted, was never maintained by DFI. The fact that there was lights on it, there were a legacy issue, and we have maintained them for as far as their natural life. And unfortunately, because the path has not been maintained, the department's policy is that we will not be street lighting areas that we don't maintain. That's the current policy. I think there is a possibility, and we've already offered, what we'll do is we're happy to work with the council and the elected representative and assist in any solution in relation to if a solution can be found for what's appropriate, and if the paths were to be lit and maintained possibly by another body such as the council, we'll give you whatever assistance there is to in relation to the lighting standard and the design of the lights that would be appropriate for that,
Okay, the next speaker is Alderman Gareth Wilson.
Thank you. I will keep my remarks brief, and it was just to deal a little more with Trotter's Walk, because I know it's going to be an issue. To come and inform the public who pay quite a bit in their rates and pay quite a bit in their taxes that you know, it sounds as though DFI are going to sort of wash their hands of this in terms of responsibility. That needs, you know, that train needs to stop quite quickly in terms of that negativity. And what I would want, and my Cusher councillors would want, is a much more positive build up to trying to solve this problem. And I know my colleagues are as well very focused on a solution to this. So saying that the lights are going to be removed is spectacularly unhelpful, and it will be like that for people. So that can't be the ultimate conclusion to this, because you're going to meet a lot of opposition to that. And just want to make that really clear, because it's such a, you know, it's a lengthy path. I've already been sent photos of the stretch of the path that's dark by walkers who are accessing a council facility, quite a well-used council facility, and council have went to considerable expense quite recently to replace the lighting heads on the pathways around the council. So there's a natural attraction there for people to walk from the Ballymore Road and from all that top end of Tonrigee, which is quite heavily residential, utilise that path, come down to the recreation centre and complete a significant walk around it in quite a secure environment. So that's the focus on this, and we want to maintain that. So I'm proposing that when you go away, there is a liaison with Jonathan Hayes here, one of our senior, most senior directors in council, that we come up with a solution. And council, I want to see council do what they can as well. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but we have put considerable effort into lighting that particular stretch to allow that walk to be completed. It's now broken in many respects with the defective lighting. There's a cable fault along a stretch of that. So I want to see some solutions to this, and it will take a positive energy about this to try and break through this problem. And I've already sensed, meeting Joe and meeting others on site, that there just isn't that positivity. We need to get that sense of positiveness back into the department, that we can solve problems. So that's what I would like to see. And I would like you to go away and with council and with our help, because we're going to keep at this. This will be on the agenda time and time again until there is a resolution to this. I'm fairly, you know, conscious that this has to happen, because it'll be us getting our doors knocked, rightly so, when the lights go out or they're removed, and that's in complete darkness. It just simply won't be acceptable, in my view. And that's that point. Another point, picking up from Councillor McElrath, the signage issue, there seems to be a real preciousness about directional signage or speed limit signage or any sort of warning sign, because when you ask for it, it is not given freely. It is not, you know, people don't answer the phone and go, yes, that's a really good idea. It doesn't seem to happen like that yet. On this main thoroughfare to Craigavon on the Northway, there's a sign laying on its back. It's a massive sign. It's been like that for months. I've actually now got into the rhythm of every month, or every, you know, 3 or 4 times a month that I'm coming down that road going, that sign's still laying on its back. So we're precious about erecting them, but then when they're laying their back for months, I think it's maybe from the storm, nobody's coming along and going, well, let's get that sign. You know, it took a lot to get that sign in place, a lot of legislation, a lot of moaning and groaning from elected representatives, and then it just lies there. And I would imagine DFI staff drive past it every day to Marlborough House, so I'm wondering what is broken that the phone isn't lifted, or somebody walks into Marlborough House and goes, or wherever their station, and goes, let's get that sign back up and doing what it's supposed to do, which is give direction to drivers and help reduce the risk. It's the same thing as Councillor McElrath says. He's absolutely right. Signs stuck in trees, and down that Northway is the same. Traffic lights even, Tonrigee, trees growing over there. It's always a constant battle to get things done, which, you know, to me that represents a bit of a failure, because if representatives are continually pointing out these things, DFI by default should be doing that themselves without the need for us to do that. But we get the need to do it. We're not arguing with that. That's part of representing the public. But there's also a massive onus on DFI to also do that. And I just don't think it's happening to the degree that people would like to see.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson, and I'm glad you said you'd be brief.
Thank you. In relation to the sign squads, yes, we realise that there is an issue there, and the issue is purely one of resource. Previously, we would have had an internal sign squad working out of the Carn depot, and they would have done a lot of our routine sign maintenance, and they were excellent. I used to be a section engineer like Kieran, and we could have had them. They would have done all our sign maintenance, lifted that sign that's sitting in Northway, which I know about. We're completely reliant now on contractor resource, and to be perfectly honest, we're not getting through the work the way we would like. So what we're trying to do is expedite that backlog of sign work that we have and trying to get them delivered in a more timely manner with resources that we have. But again, it's not only staff resources, contractor resources, but it's also down to the budgets available to do that type of work. Whilst we have some additional resource allocation this year, that's one of the things that we intend to tackle, is some of the backlog with regards to sign maintenance. So hopefully you will see a wee bit of an improvement in the coming months in relation to that. In relation to Trotters Walk, what I have to say in Council today is that the lights that are in Trotters Walk have been deemed to be unsafe, so it's a public safety issue. So that's why the instruction has been given that they will be removed. The department is willing to work with all the relevant agencies to find a solution. We're engineers, we can give the engineering solutions. However, that path is not maintained or owned by the department. We will work and provide whatever assistance we can and to deliver a solution. And if there are funding mechanisms that can be brought forward, we'll happily assist with the engineering in terms of the solutions. But at the minute, the lights are being removed because they're unsafe.
Councillor Thomas O'Hanlon.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Cindy. And can I, with others, add my thanks to Kieran and the team who take calls and emails from me on a very regular basis. I feel sorry for you here tonight, Cindy, because this is not of your making, it's of the political masters. And, like Councillor Barry, he was a bit shy to himself, or he said he was here 20 years. I think he's in local government 25 years, because I'm 20. And for what I will say is, I don't think in any of those annual reports did any divisional roads manager come in and say things is wonderful and we've got more money than we ever wanted and we're doing things better. In fact, I think from 2005 to now it's been a more depressing story year on year. Though if you read some of the media around our part of the world, there's a minister running around in a yellow jacket filling potholes and everybody's thanking for the wonderful work that's happening. But if you listen to the debate that's going on in here tonight, that doesn't actually seem to be transpiring. I think it's fair to say that our roads are in an absolute terrible state. But I suppose in my part of the world, you don't really need speed ramps or traffic control because we have the natural ones. They're called potholes. And Kieran will know what I'm referring to, but I have yellow ducks where I go around and start putting yellow ducks into potholes, where my children are now saying, Daddy, is that a pothole for a big yellow duck or is it for a small yellow duck? And they can even tell you that we were here before and it was a wee duck and now it's a big duck. Trying to, yeah, it's a quacker one. And it's more to illustrate a point that quack off. And it's a serious point in that our roads are getting worse. And what's happening is then whenever the section office does come along and do some work, it nearly makes the roads adjacent to those look even worse. So I don't know what I can say to you other than I agree with everything everybody's just said. I know nothing about Trotter's Path in Tandragee, but what I can tell you is we probably have got 10 of them in Katie as well. But look, just to pass on my thanks, I know there's schemes. I know I've written to the office in relation to express my thanks about the scheme on the Katie Road at Garvin's Bridge. And there's a bit of an issue there about forward sight lines, the way signs are placed, and I've asked for that to be reviewed as one gone through to Marlborough House. But look, as I say, I do feel sorry for you. We know this is not of your making, and I hope that those who have given you a hard time also give their own colleagues in the Assembly and in the Executive a hard time too. Thank you.
Okay, I don't detect a question as such there, so move to Alderman Glenn Barr.
It'll be quack. No, thank you very much for coming this evening. Thank you, Lord Mayor, for bringing me in. Just really to echo what's been said here this evening, You know, hopefully this time next year when you come, everybody will be completely the opposite and praising you right through your whole department. I just want to bounce off the speed control measures around schools. There's a school in Banbridge, Ballydown Primary School, along with Market Hill, has missed these 20-mile-an-hours. I lobbied for several of them, one at the Bronte, one at Lanadurg and Moyallen, and we were able to get them. Problem with Ballydown is the school shape does not face onto the road. Yes, you brought in a white line down the middle, but it still hasn't stopped cars overtaking, cars coming down, speeding, right beside a school playground. You know, we're talking about school safety here. Beside a school playground is where the fast road is. And it's not a 30-mile-an-hour zone, it's not a 40 or 50, it's national speed limit road. So I would like you, please, to look at all our schools with the view of bringing all the schools on board. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. As I've said earlier, there is a review that will kick off very shortly that will look at permanent 20-mile-an-hour zones, not just around schools as one possibility, but also within our town centres and other residential areas. So hopefully that will bring forward those legislative changes in relation to speed limits. So that's one thing. What I would say, you know, we have a large number of schools within the Southern Division. This year we initially started with a possibility of just doing 6. That's been extended now to 10, and that brings across the whole of Northern Ireland, that's 273 schools that have been part-time 20s. We'd like to do more. Unfortunately, it's just down to the resources available to do more, but hopefully if there was a legislative change in relation to permanent 20-mile-an-hours, that would mean that we wouldn't have to go through each individual schools, and that would just be a legislative change.
Councillor Tim McClelland.
Okay, Lord Mayor, thank you for letting me in, and I promise that I will be brief. And Lord Mayor, I am resisting the temptation to speak on sort of street lights that have been taken away from sort of rural areas. But my couple of queries would be in terms of the report, Cindy, and thank you for it, and thank you for your time this evening. On table 44, I note that there's 723 public liability claims that have been settled by the department in the reference period that the report is for. I note that there is no number, as in no amount of public money that is listed on the face of the report. And I suppose I would ask the question, why is that? And I would like to know that number, and probably the question that would follow that would be, you know, in terms of good governance and in terms of sort of probity and in terms of sort of public money, does the department think that it is a good way of spending public money? So that's my first question. My second question concerns table 47, and it concerns Aucknaskeg Road and the culvert replacement. Now, it's quite clearly listed in your report that it is the financial year 2025-26. Effectively, the case that I raise, the issue happened in the previous financial year, and there's a reasonably good chance that it won't be solved until year 3. And all the while, there's inconvenience in terms of school buses not being allowed to go along the road because there's a safety issue and so on. Communities are suffering, and there is a lot of frustration, and whether it's here this evening or whether it's offline, I would like a definite date when this particular culvert replacement or repair work will happen. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. In relation to the culvert replacement, you'll appreciate there's been design work ongoing. I will take it back to my colleagues within our structure section and try and get a definite programme for that works. What I would say is you're not going to get an absolute definite date. It's in the programme. We will be able to give you a definite date when a works order has been issued to the contractor and we have received a contractual programme. But I will get you as much information in relation to time frame for that as I can and give a written response on that. In relation to the public liability claims, table 44, there is a link provided to the department's published statistics with regards to how much money has been paid in relation to public liability claims. If you use that link, my understanding is that that information in relation to the monetary value of those claims is available for the last 4 or 5 years. So if you use that link, we didn't put the money in the report, but we have provided the link. So I don't know what it is offhand, but we can access that information. It's on the published statistics within the department.
Okay, Councillor Paul Duffy.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Cindy. I'd like to also put on record about Alwyn Williamson, and I believe he got a well-deserved promotion. And could you furnish the Portadown councillors whose replacement will be? And just on things, Cindy, Woodside Hill, Portadown, was down for resurfacing in the 25-26 thing, but it doesn't appear on any of these things. Now, I've got word that it is on it, but no word on when it will be done. And once again, Cindy, very disappointed in the amount of footpaths for resurfacing compared to roads. I understand, I say this year in, year out here, not everybody's on the roads, but there's a lot of elderly people are on the footpaths. So they're actually just nipping in and out the shops, particularly there in Ballyorn, which I've been told privately, the area is too big and it will never ever get on a resurfacing scheme because there's that much work involved in it. And it seems to be a lot of big estates don't seem to get the treatment they deserve. You know, in resurfacing the roads and the footpaths. Now, Ballyorn brought it up year in, year out. So it is for years and it never appears on any list. And I've been told privately that it never would because it'll cost too much. Thank you.
Thank you. Ballyorn, just on that, we have to prioritise all our resurfacing, be it footway or carriageway resurfacing. And obviously we have programmes in both section offices. And what we're trying to do in the likes of those large estates, which are of a certain particular vintage, is prioritise the areas where there's highest footfall. So like community facilities, outside shops. And I know that within the Banbridge, Craigavon area, there's a number of those that have been targeted for resurfacing outside shops or in areas of community facilities where we have that increased footfall. So it's a case of biting off what we can manage in an appropriate year. So it's no areas too big as such, but it's trying to make the schemes, and we do it the same with our resurfacing schemes. We'd like always to be able to do more, but sometimes when you go to the next junction where it's needed, it means additional costs in relation to not only just the service and the materials, but the traffic management costs can be excessive. If you do the likes of what we did this year in Dungannon Road, Portadown, we would like to have done a much longer scheme, but we have to keep it curtailed so it's something that we can deliver. But if you like, I'll go back and get you where it is on the programmes, Ballyardle, and that other location you mentioned for resurfacing as well.
Okay, Councillor Kyle Murtry.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, if I could just come in even off the back of Councillor Duffy's comments, I think he's quite right. If I could just echo that. Last week I was in 4 separate estate inspections in Portadown DEA, and that was something that I remarked on, and other agencies who were on the estate inspection with us remarked on the condition of footpaths. And again, I would have particular concerns for elderly residents in the area, and particularly Rectory Estate. I've reported footpaths there needing resurface, needing repair works on numerous occasions. There were a lot of instances whereby particular sections of footpaths had been sprayed and then they come back and spray it again whenever the spray has worn out. So that's just how bad things are. So if that's something that can be taken into consideration, I'd appreciate it very much. Thank you.
We'll look at those locations and give you a written response on that. Thank you.
Okay, and lastly, myself, Cindy, if I can make reference to Table 16 within your report, and it talks about the 20-mile-an-hour school limits. Kings Park School on the Avenue Road, Lurgan, which I'm at several days a week, is a danger hotspot. They have been promised a priority public safety upgrade to safer routes to school signs. Would it not be a better spend to work towards the 20-mile limit, which is really needed? Because I have talked to the patrolman there, and on several, and I say several occasions, he has almost been hit by traffic going past. That's a main arterial route from Lurgan to Dollingstown, Marlin and Moira. Would it not be a better to spend to reduce the speed limit rather than to add signage?
Thank you. Kings Park Primary School, there are a number of measures there. What we're doing is upgrading those measures. You know, we would like to be able to do measures across all of the schools. Unfortunately, the programme that we've had to prioritise, and those that have been prioritised this year within the borough relate to largely essentially rural schools, and we have a large number, particularly within this council area and also in the adjacent council areas. So as I said, we're trying to work our way through them based on the resources that we have, but hopefully with regards to 20-mile-an-hour zones, the consultation exercise, and I keep repeating in relation to what's coming on board, it may be one of the measures that may come out of that and means that we don't have to work our way down through the lists. It's not that we don't think they would be appropriate, it's just a case of having to prioritise the resources that we have.
Okay, thank you for that. Can I thank you for your attendance tonight, both you and Kieran, though Kieran got off pretty late. But I hope you sense the level of frustration that permeates right across the chamber. And in my time as a councillor, I've rarely seen it to this level, unfortunately. And it's not personal to yourselves, but can I suggest maybe you go back and feed it up the chain? Because councillors are not happy with the level of communication that they have with road service, and they're not happy with the priorities that sometimes are identified. And these are life and death methods. Whenever you came in tonight, you referred to the priority of public safety. That's all members want as well. But thank you for your attendance. It's appreciated. Okay, members, moving on then to agenda item 5, which is the committee minutes. Can I have a proposer and seconder that the minutes of the Planning and Regulatory Services Committee held on the 1st of October be taken, read and approved as a correct record? The Chair's Councillor Savage, happy to propose, and Councillor Misdowd seconded. Thank you. We all agreed to adopt the recommendations contained, and happy to move on. Thank you. Can I have a proposer and second that the minutes of Environmental Services Committee on the 7th of October taken as read and approved as a correct record? The Chair is Councillor Sarah Duffy. Thank you. And the Vice Chair, Councillor McElrath. Thank you. Are we happy to move on? Thank you. Can I have a proposer and a seconder for the Governance, Resources and Strategy Committee meeting held on the 8th of October be taken and read as an approved and correct record? Councillor Evans. Happy to propose. Councillor Mackle, happy to second. Thank you. Are we all agreed to adopt the recommendations contained within and happy to move on? Okay. Can I have a proposer and seconder for the minutes of the Community and Wellbeing Committee meeting held on the 13th of October be read and approved as a correct record? Alderman Barr, thank you. And Alderman Wilson, thank you. We all agreed with the recommendations contained and happy to move on. I have Councillor Keith Hockin.
Thank you, Chair. And just if you'll allow me, just on item 4.2 around the Good Relations Fund, and I just want to briefly say thank you to our staff who were involved in the recent event around Halloween in Lurgan Park. I think they're in Dromore, and then they have another location which escapes me. So we just want to give a massive shout out to them, because the effort put in from many days before, and the hours that they spent on Saturday in particular. I don't think they were finished up to about 7 o'clock. A lot of that work goes unseen. So I just want to say thank you to all of them. Thank you.
Okay, noted. Can I have a proposer and seconder for the Economic Development Regeneration Committee held on the 14th? Councillor McLeod, you happy to propose? And Councillor Jude Mallon, happy to second. Are we all agreed to adopt the recommendations and to move on? Okay. Moving on then to agenda item 6, the schedule of correspondence. There are 2 items. 6.1 DFI roads, re-proposed abandonments of superseded stretch of the Vicarage Road Portadown. Are there any member objections in relation to this? No. And 6.2 Mid Ulster Council re-notice of motion car T treatment. Members happy to note? Thank you. Correspondence for noting, there are 3 items, 6.3, 4 and 5, unless any member wishes to raise. Are we happy to note these 3 items? Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7, schedule of documents requiring corporate seal. There are 5 items. Can I have a proposer and a second to agree to sign and seal all these legal documents? Councillor Herr, seconded by Alderman Burns, and agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 8, notice of motion 8.1 is a notice of motion in relation to definition of a victim in the Victims and Survivors Northern Ireland Order 2006. The proposer is Councillor Ian Wilson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I bring this motion with a heavy heart that yet again history is trying to be rewritten on the attempt to equate innocent victims of terrorism with those who cruelly murdered men, women and children, because this motion goes right to the very core of truth, justice and decency. It relates to the motion brought to the floor of the Northern Ireland Assembly this September by my party regarding holding the Irish Government to account on legacy. Unfortunately, but not surprisingly, Sinn Féin proposed an amendment to erase the word innocent from the DUP motion. And of course, the SDLP and Alliance, who hold the position of Justice Minister, decided to support the Sinn Féin amendment, yet again showing especially the Alliance Party that where Sinn Féin goes, they follow. There is no moral equivalent between victim makers and innocent victims, none whatsoever. How can we tell a widow that lost her husband to terrorism that the very person who killed him shares the same legal status as her? How can we expect those who were shot, maimed or bereaved to tolerate that? We certainly won't. The cold-blooded killers of their loved ones should not be viewed as no different to those they went out to kill. We in the DUP will not allow history to be perversely twisted. It's cruel, it's wrong, and it must stop. Many across this borough have suffered at the hands of terrorists, families grieving the loss of loved ones, or who are now living with the scars and pain of life-changing injuries. The atrocity that comes to the forefront of my mind tonight is the bombing of Banbridge in 1982, and the brother of our late friend and colleague, Alderman Junior McCrum. Junior sat in this chamber and in the old Banbridge Council for many years, representing Banbridge DEA with honour and dignity. Junior's brother Alan was 11 years old, waiting to return home to his family after school, when he was cruelly murdered by IRA terrorists in Banbridge on the 15th of March in 1982 by a no-warning bomb. Also on that day, 34 people were injured. Alan was a young boy with his whole life ahead of him, but his future was taken away at the hands of the IRA. Dare anyone try to tell me that this that these psychopaths that murdered Alan that day and injured so many are victims. Lord Mayor, this motion is about truth over revisionism, innocence over guilt, and justice over convenience. We will not stand by while the line between good and evil is blurred. We will not accept that those who brought death and destruction to our communities should ever be placed on the same moral ground as those they destroyed. And even to suggest such a thing is quite frankly stomach-churning, disgusting and immoral. We are all given free will in life to make choices between good and evil, and those who took the path of murder freely chose evil. The innocent victims at the hands of terrorists weren't given any choice. So, Lord Mayor, my motion is that this council is deeply alarmed that the definition of the victim and the Victims and Survivors Northern Ireland Order of 2006 does not distinguish between those who perpetrated wrongdoing during the Troubles and the innocent victims they harmed, injured, killed or bereaved. Believes that innocent victims should not have to interact with terrorists and their supporters when assessing victim support services, asserts that there is no moral equivalence between victim makers and innocent victims, welcomes the fact that the victims' pension legislation makes a clear distinction between perpetrator and victim, condemns Alliance and the SDLP for supporting the amendment. This decision was intentionally to blur the line by removing the word innocent from the description of in a recent Assembly motion addressing the legacy of the past. And we resolve to write to the Justice Minister requesting that she personally apologises for suggesting that victim makers could also be considered victims. As role as Justice Minister, this clearly shows no thought for real innocent victims of terrorism. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
The seconder is Alderman Paul Greenfield.
Lord Mayor, members, I want to second this motion brought by my colleague Ian tonight. It is a sad situation in which we find ourselves having to bring a motion to recognise that there is a difference between an innocent victim and the criminals who murdered, bombed and shot innocent members of our community. This recent amendment by Sinn Féin to a motion on legacy at the Northern Ireland Assembly, supported by the DUP and the Alliance Party, which removed the word innocent when referring to victims, raises profound issues about how we understand and acknowledge harm. It is vital that we maintain the distinction between innocent victims and the victim makers who have killed, bombed and murdered so many in our society. Lord Mayor, I want to speak of a friend of mine, known to many in this chamber, Sammy Heenan. Sammy's father was out feeding hens at their home before he would head to work, when he was forced to his knees and shot twice in the back of the head and left to die. Sammy, a young boy of 12 years of age, stood at a window, watched the murderer drive off. Sammy Heenan was left an orphan that day on the 3rd of May 1985, when his father, William Heenan, was murdered by the IRA. Surely we can all accept that Sammy Heenan is an innocent victim of terrorists and criminals. Lord Mayor, earlier this year on Sunday the 4th of May, I had the privilege to attend the 40th anniversary service of Thanksgiving and remembrance for the life of Mr William Heenan in a packed Drumgoolan church. On that occasion, that day, Lord Mayor, there was representatives from the Alliance benches in this chamber who rightly were there to support Sammy and his family, but this is the same party that voted to remove the word innocent in relation to victims of terrorism. Just last week, Lord Mayor, our so-called First Minister for all could not acknowledge that Diane Dodds and her husband Nigel were innocent victims when the IRA attempted to shoot and murder them as they visited their sick child in the Royal Victoria Hospital. I know for sure that Diane does not want tea and sympathy from someone who continues to eulogise terrorists. Northern Ireland needs a leadership to say that terrorists committed horrific murders and the victims of terrorism are innocent indeed. Tonight, Lord Mayor, I would ask for support for this motion as outlined by my colleague Ian to bring some recognition and distinction between those who were victim makers and those who were innocent victims. Thank you.
I bring in Councillor Keith Hockham.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Our group will be opposing the motion being brought forward tonight by the DUP. This is an attempt to change the legal definition of a victim and should be challenged. The Victim and Survivors Order 2006 referenced in the motion contains the legal definition of a victim and survivor. This legal definition is comprehensive, inclusive, non-judgmental, and is not influenced or shaped by narrow political and divisive perspectives. That same legislation established the Commission for Victims and Survivors, which promotes the interests of victims and survivors. The Commission is also responsible for carrying out research and providing advice to the Executive in relation to policy decisions based on this legal definition of a victim. The Victim and Survivors Service delivers support and services to improve the health and well-being of all victims and survivors. They deliver funding and support on behalf of the Executive. They are there to assist all victims and survivors as defined by the legal definition, without taking into account the circumstances surrounding their injuries or bereavement or their political orientation. The Victims and Survivors Forum is appointed by the Commission and Victims Commissioner to help in understanding the needs of victims and survivors while giving advice to the Executive Office also. Its membership spans the political spectrum, having included former members of the British Armed Forces, civilians and former political prisoners. All of these mechanisms have been working well since the Victims and Survivors Order came into operation 19 years ago. They provide a voice, essential services, funding and assistance for all victims, their advocacy groups and survivors. They are all bound by the 2006 order and the legal definition contained within that legislation. Any attempt to change the legal definition would drive a wedge through the victim and survivor community and undo much of the excellent work being done on their behalf by the agencies I have mentioned here this evening. The order depoliticised the issue of victims and survivors, with all victims and their advocacy groups working together on behalf of everyone impacted by the conflict here in the north. This motion is an attempt to divide that community by politicising the definition and excluding a section of society from accessing what is rightfully theirs. It should be opposed by all citizens and political parties who subscribe to equality and a rights-based approach to dealing with our past conflict. The imperative of developing a genuine process of reconciliation is not best served by taking this approach. We will be opposing this motion tonight.
Okay, Councillor Peter Lavery.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The Alliance Party has always been unequivocal. There is no moral equivalence between those who deliberately caused harm during the Troubles and those who suffered because of their actions. Anyone who actually listened to the recent interview will have heard Naomi Long state that clearly. Unlike others, Alliance have been consistent. Those who set out to kill or injure should be held fully accountable for their actions. Our party can stand tall in the fact that we have never endorsed the activity of paramilitary or other prescribed groups, nor have we sought advice on government policy from their umbrella organisations. Can the party that brought this motion say the same? It was only recently that DUP ministers were sitting down with the Loyalist Community Council for tea and biscuits, prioritising meetings with a group that represents the interests of active crime gangs, whilst refusing to meet other groups advocating for community improvements. Since our foundation in 1970, the Alliance Party has stood unequivocally for the rule of law. It is deeply disappointing that some parties have chosen willfully misrepresent Naomi Long's comments for cheap political gain. Such distortion not only undermines honest debate, it causes real hurt to victims and survivors, people who suffer and deserve respect, not exploitation. The motion brought forward to the NI Assembly by the DUP called for the Irish Government to have no role in reconciliation or information recovery processes, which would create a border in Ireland for victims' rights. If the DUP had their way, victims and survivors would have even less of a chance for justice than they currently do at present. There should be no borders or barriers to justice. There should be no amnesties. Where there is evidence of wrongdoing, prosecutions should be sought. Victims and survivors need to stop being used for political point scoring. The Victims and Survivors Northern Ireland Order was implemented in 2006 by a Westminster government, not by Alliance. Using council time to relitigate legislation which is nearly 20 years old does nothing to deliver truth, does nothing to support victims and survivors, and does nothing to advance justice. It is a disservice both to victims and to local ratepayers who expect their councils to focus on practical support and reconciliation, not political theatre. Let me emphasise, Lord Mayor, there is no moral equivalence between perpetrators and the innocent. The Alliance Party's record speaks for itself. We have consistently supported measures that deliver for victims, strengthening the Victims and Survivors Service, backing truth recovery mechanisms, and advocating for a comprehensive victim-centred approach to dealing with the past. Northern Ireland will only move forward when all parties commit to reconciliation, recovery and responsibility. With this in mind, Lord Mayor, I propose that the motion be amended to become that this Council agrees that there is no moral equivalence between those who deliberately caused harm during the Troubles and those who suffered because of their actions. Calls on the UK and Irish governments to adopt positions of full disclosure in legacy investigations, and encourages all parties to commit to working towards delivering a reconciled and shared future. Do you want me to email that amendment through to Democratic Services, Lord Mayor? Thank you.
Councillor Lavery, I'm led to believe that's not an amendment, it's a substantially new motion. So, I'm not taking it on that basis, I'm afraid. Go ahead. Sorry.
Lord Mayor, point of order under Standing Order 30. I'm wondering what Standing Order you're interpreting to refuse to take an amendment to a motion. I am a democratically elected representative. I have the democratic ability to make an amendment to the motion. The amendment is outlined. I cannot believe you're using your power to silence democracy on this issue, Lord Mayor.
Just take your time. Okay? I'm taking advice from the top table. Councillor Lavery, can you forward the amendment to us? And then we're going to pause for 5 minutes to have a look at it. Okay, members, we have given some consideration to the wording that Councillor Lavery has sent forward, and in relation to Standing Order 9.1, it is in effect, in our estimation, a new proposal and not in nature with what is proposed, so we will not be accepting it. And we now move on to Councillor Keith Radcliffe.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. First of all, I would like to welcome this motion brought forward by our DUP colleagues, Councillor Ian Wilson and Alderman Paul Greenfield. It is, as the proposer said, self-explanatory. It expresses deep alarm that language and definitions used in victims' legislation, specifically in 2006 Victims and Survivors Northern Ireland Order, blur the vital moral line between those who were harmed, injured, killed or bereaved through no fault of their own and those who perpetrated harm. This is not hair-splitting. This is a matter of principle. It is essential for public confidence in victim services and is fundamental to the moral order of our society. It also is essential to prevent the rewriting of our past. To suggest that there is no distinction between the innocent victim of terrorism and the terrorist who caused their suffering, the terrorist who perhaps died by his own hand, as happened in the Shankill bombing, is not only absurd, it's grossly insulting to relatives. What sort of message in Northern Ireland is sending the world if this is allowed to stand? Imagine, Lord Mayor, the reaction in the United States if someone were to suggest that there was no difference between the hijackers of 9/11 and the innocent passengers who were murdered when those planes were flown into the Twin Towers. Imagine suggesting that a terrorist shot by police in Manchester is morally equivalent to the Jewish citizens who came under attack in Manchester only weeks ago. That, colleagues, is logical consequences of what Sinn Féin, the SDLP and the Alliance Party did when they voted to remove the word innocent from an Assembly motion addressing victims. Whatever spin is now deployed, whatever words are wrapped around it, that is only rational conclusion one can draw from those actions. It comes as no surprise from Sinn Féin, who have long sought to justify, sanitise and even celebrate the wickedness of the IRA campaign. But it doesn't tarnish the SDLP, a party that does not share that legacy, yet have now chosen to stand beside those who do. And as for Alliance, it reveals just how much the Republican Kool-Aid that party has swallowed, that it should lose its moral compass to such an extent. Perhaps after the weekend's poll, which saw them shed yet more support as unionists wake up to the reality of what they have become, they will reflect and change course, but I will not hold my breath. So yes, I welcome this motion and I will support it wholeheartedly, but I will also ask my DUP colleagues a simple question. Do you have confidence in the Justice Minister? Because in my book, a Justice Minister who cannot tell the difference between a victim and a victim maker has no business holding that office. This is why my colleague Timothy Gaston, MLA, has tabled a motion of no confidence in Mrs Long. And so while there is tonight unionist unity in this chamber, which I welcome, behind the DUP motion, it would be good to see mutual act of unionist unity in Stormont, with the DUP and the Ulster Unionist Party lending their support to the TUV motion of no confidence. Because at the end of the day, this issue is not about party politics, it's about truth, it's about justice, and it's about respect for the innocent victims of terrorism, whose memory demands better than the moral confusion that we have seen in recent days. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
The next speaker is Alderman Glenn Barr.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. In recent years, concern has grown among victim groups and the public about the application of the term victim. The Victims and Survivors Northern Ireland Order 2006 aimed to support those affected by the Troubles, but its interpretation has sometimes failed to acknowledge the moral difference between innocent victims and those who committed violence. I thank my colleagues here tonight for bringing forward this motion. The core issue is to recognise the clear moral distinction between those who committed terrorism and those harmed, bereaved or injured as a result. Sinn Féin's recent amendment in Stormont, suggesting perpetrators could be regarded as victims, is wrong and is deeply concerning. Let's be clear, Thomas Begley, who on the 23rd of October 1993 carried out one of the most heinous acts of terrorism that this country has ever seen. Begley is no victim, and shame on anyone whose moral compass is that morally corrupt thinks otherwise. As representatives, we must approach this with compassion and dignity, focusing on innocent victims and survivors, not the politics. I'm proposing a slight amendment reinforcing this principle. Their voices and needs come first, above party interest. This Council should unite on this front, prioritising decency, fairness and respect for those who suffered most. In legacy discussions, innocent victims must remain central above politics and division. My amendment is to be inserted at the end of the motion, Lord Mayor. Afterward says, after innocent victims of terrorism. Furthermore, this Council reaffirms its unwavering commitment to ensuring that the voices, needs and experiences of innocent victims and survivors remain central to all discussions, policies and services relating to the legacy of the past. The Council believes that compassion, fairness and respect must guide all public representatives in addressing victims' issues, and that political division should never be allowed to overshadow the suffering endured by those who were entirely blameless. I can forward this through to you, Lord Mayor, if you wish.
Alderman Barr, in my eyes, that's not an amendment, that's an addition. And if you look at 19.1 in standing orders, an amendment to a motion shall either leave out words and insert alternative words, or insert or add extra words. And we're not talking about, the volume that you're coming forward with now, quite honestly. Do you want to email it forward to us, first of all, please, for consideration? Again, members, will take a 5-minute adjournment. Members, having spoken with Alderman Barr, I'm going to ask him, would he read out the proposed amendment now, please? Hit your button.
Sorry. That's it, sent through to you, Lord Mayor. So the amendment is, the Council believes that compassion, fairness and respect must guide all public representatives in addressing victims' issues, and that political division should never be allowed to overshadow the suffering endured by those who are entirely blameless. That's sent through to you there, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. And that's going at the end of the existing motion. Okay. Do you have a seconder? Seconded by Alderman Burns. Did you want to speak, Alderman Burns, further?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just and second, I would like to say that there can never be any blurred line between innocent victims and the perpetrators. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Point of order, Councillor Lavery.
Me now. Point of order in relation to point of order 19.1, which you referred to earlier. And I'm trying to understand why you've accepted this point of order, which adds words, when you've refused my previous, this amendment, when you refused my previous amendment, stating it as a new proposition. When I reviewed the 19.1, the standing order, it's clear that my amendment is not a new proposition on a different matter. It's an addition and a subtraction of words on the matter of victims, which is under debate. And I can't understand why you've rejected mine and accepted another. It appears to be a fallacy and completely inconsistent. And Lord Mayor, I'm really concerned about the way in which you're choosing to handle this matter. But if you could give me an explanation, I would be deeply appreciated, because I'm hugely concerned about it, Lord Mayor.
Sorry, I thought you had finished there. What you had sent earlier was a rewrite of the motion in my eyes, Councillor Lavery, and I have already ruled on that, so I'm not going to rehash it here again for your benefit. Now, we have another motion which has added on a small amendment, which has added on a few extra words at the end of it. I'm prepared to accept that. It's totally different to what you had sent me, and you should be able to have a look at it yourself and understand that. That has been seconded. So I'm now going to go to Alderman Paul Berry.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and could I also thank the proposers and seconders of this motion, Councillor Ian Wilson and Alderman Paul Greenfield, and I'm happy to also not only support this but support the amendment in Alderman Barr's name. I think for nearly over 30 years now, the innocent victim has felt very much betrayed by those in authority, by His Majesty's government, going back over 25, 30 years, and in all of their dealings with clearly terrorist sympathisers from the various political quarters. The definition of a victim here tonight with what has been proposed has clearly stated that there is no moral equivalence between the victim makers and the innocent victims. And on the 24th of February in 1993, I had the sad news delivered to me at the age of 16 of the tragic death of my uncle Reggie Williamson, who was a member of the gallant Royal Ulster Constabulary. He was brutally murdered by the Provisional IRA by them planting a booby-trap bomb under his car. And frankly, I don't need a big speech tonight to be told what's a victim and what's not a victim. And I think we're leading to a very bad position in Northern Ireland for those politically who can look at their own conscience. And if they believe that that person who planted the bomb under my uncle's car is a victim, then they're pretty sick people. They're pretty low people. And I think it really gets to the crux of Northern Ireland moving forward if we still have people politically thinking that those who planted the bombs, those who shot the person in the head, those who put people on fire are victims as we currently stand in 2025, then I really, really do worry for this country moving forward. I don't care what balaclava was being made, whether it was a loyalist balaclava or a Republican balaclava. If they murdered innocent people, well then they cannot be treated as victims. They're the victim makers. And Lord Mayor, it is abundantly clear tonight, and it will always be abundantly clear to me as one who has lost an uncle at the hands of terrorists, that that person that planted that bomb, those people that planned that attack, should not be receiving any help, should not be receiving any benefits, should not be receiving any assistance whatsoever, because they had a decision to make that night. Before they planted the bomb under his car, they had a decision: do they plant it or not? They were going to take innocent life. They betrayed everyone belonging to us. And the sad reality of it is they left a widow, they left children orphaned. Is that a victim? The person that planted that bomb? And I would appeal to those within the various political spheres tonight to really, really consider what they're doing, because even within the amendment, Alderman Bars, politically, yes, we do have to be sensitive and we do have to be thought-provoking. But for the many, many victims, not just my aunt and my cousins who I've spoken to on many, many occasions, but the many victims within my own neighbourhood who suffered, it is abundantly clear the pain, the hurt, the anxiety that they have suffered right to this day. And they are deeply hurt and deeply sad of the current definition and with the innocent being taken out. It has caused great hurt, great shame and great anxiety for the innocent victims. And I fully support this motion here tonight and the amendment, and I trust that common sense will prevail and that we will think of the innocent victims who have suffered. Because, as I've said, those wearing the balaclavas, from whatever religion they supposedly came from, they are certainly not the victims. They're the victim maker, and always will be in the eyes of the decent Norman people in Northern Ireland.
Okay, I have one speaker remaining, and that'll be the last speaker we'll take on this tonight, and that's Councillor Thomas O'Hanlon. And after that, Alderman Barr, I'm going to ask you to read your amendment at the bottom of the proposal so we're clear just if it goes to a vote after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I don't think debates of this nature do anything for the victims in this place. I think dragging this type of debate through a chamber that has no input into it, into the overall process, doesn't help those who have suffered. Councillor or Alderman Barry refers to he doesn't make no difference between what balaclava anyone wore or who donned that. And I agree with him. But I would go one step further and say I don't care whether you wore balaclava or Barry, whether you were a member of a paramilitary organisation or a state agency in this place. You created victims. I make no difference to the innocent people in Kingsmill as I do to the innocent people, the Reevies and the O'Dowds. There are many families across this island, and victims are right to call on the Irish government to open up their books, to cooperate fully. But so must the British state. So whenever you see the like of the widow of Sean Brown been dragged through the courts time and time and time again to get answers, we can't pick and choose who gets answers in this place. I don't care whether they were Provo or Para, they were wrong. And one of the initial speakers talked about good and evil, death and destruction. They all dragged this society through some very terrible years. And I genuinely don't think that debates like this tonight helps any of the families. Whenever you sit down, and I've sat with some of the families from Kingsmill, I've sat with the Reevies, and when you see the former First Minister go to the House of Commons and use parliamentary privilege to name Eugene Reevy as a terrorist, and yet call after call after call for him to withdraw that slur on that man's name, and he couldn't bring himself to do it. I think that people need to choose their words wisely, and I think they need to watch where they're pointing fingers. Thank you.
Alderman Barr, if you would read your amendment, please.
Council believes that compassion, fairness and respect must guide all public representatives in addressing victims' issues, and that political divisions should never be allowed to overshadow the suffering endured by those who are entirely blameless.
Okay, thank you. Are members content with the motion as amended? No? Okay, we'll put it to the vote then if there are members clearly saying no. Yeah, okay. Okay, give us a minute. We'll set up a vote then. Somebody asked. Did someone ask for a recorded vote?
Recorded vote. Yeah.
Make it clear then, please. Okay, members, right?
Can I have a request a recorded vote, Lord Mayor? Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Did you want to sum up, Councillor Wilson?
Yes.
Should have, but anyway, okay.
Lord Mayor, in closing, as we approach Remembrance Sunday on the 9th, this motion is even more poignant. On Sunday, the 8th of November 1987, the IRA detonated a no-warning bomb near the War Memorial in Enniskillen. This brutal attack killed 11 people and injured 63. And the 12th victim, Ronnie Hill, died in the year 2000 after being in a coma for 13 years following this bombing. All these people were innocent. They were paying their respects to those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for all our freedoms. These innocent victims in Enniskillen in 1987 weren't given a choice, weren't given an opportunity to get to safety. Many injured that day lived with lifelong changing injuries for the rest of their lives, living in constant pain and reliving the trauma of that horrifying day. But the IRA terrorists had a choice. They chose to bring death and destruction to the streets of Enniskillen that Remembrance Sunday. Lord Mayor, many in this chamber will be attending remembrance services across the Borough on the 9th. So if you support this motion, you will be standing on Sunday the 9th in solidarity with those who lost their lives and injured of Enniskillen on that fateful day in 1987, and along with all innocent victims of terrorists, the terrorist campaign in Northern Ireland and across the UK. But if you reject this motion and you attend any commemoration on the 9th, I hope you look at the War Memorial in front of you and your conscience is pricked. That you had the opportunity to do the right thing, but you chose to side with those who murdered many of the people whose names that are engraved on that memorial. So I urge every member to support this motion, to support innocent victims that have had enough to endure. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, members, we're about to open the vote, and it's on the amended motion that was agreed from Alderman Barr. So we are, okay? No, I'm sorry, the vote has now opened. Sorry? Yes. Yeah. Is there anything plus the answers? Okay, members, we're going to close the vote. Take it everyone has had their opportunity to vote. Okay, members, the result is as follow. In favour of the amended motion, 20, against 14, and 4 abstentions. Those voting yes: myself, Councillor Scott Armstrong, Alderman Glenn Barr, Alderman Baxter, Alderman Berry, Alderman Burns, Councillor Evans, Councillor Flaherty, Alderman Greenfield, Councillor Herr, Alderman Kennedy, Councillor McClellan, Councillor McElrath, Councillor Moutre, Councillor Mulholland, Alderman Rankin, Councillor Radcliffe, Councillor Savage, Alderman Wilson and Councillor Wilson. Those voting no: Councillor Donnelly, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Sarah Duffy and Councillor Paul Duffy, Councillor Hochy, Councillor Hockian, Councillor Mackle, Councillor Ashley Mallon, Councillor Jude Mallon, Councillor McCartan, Councillor McConville Walker, Councillor Nelson, Councillor O'Dowd, Councillor O'Kane and Councillor Kevin Savage. The abstentions were Councillor Robbie Alexander, Councillor Jessica Johnson, Councillor Peter Lavery and Councillor Thomas O'Hanlon. Okay, members, we move on to the next item of business. And
just a quick technical point, Lord Mayor, and I'm just not sure, maybe looking more toward Wendy. We were voting the amendment there, so that now becomes a substantive motion. So,
Yeah.
strictly speaking, we need to have a vote then on the substantive motion.
Sorry, I was just about to say the same thing.
are we all agreed on the substantive motion? No. Okay. Going to have to vote again. Councillor Wilson. Okay. Let's go again, members. When's the vote open? Okay. Okay, members, the vote's open. Okay, members, we're about to close the vote. Okay, members, the result of that vote was yes, 20 votes, no, 18 votes. And those voting yes were as follows. Myself, Councillor Armstrong, Alderman Barr, Alderman Baxter, Alderman Berry, Alderman Burns, Councillor Evans, Councillor Flaherty, Alderman Greenfield, Councillor Herr, Alderman Kennedy, Councillor McClelland, Councillor McElrath, Councillor Moutre, Councillor Mulholland, Alderman Rankin, Councillor Radcliffe, Councillor Kyle Savage, Alderman Wilson and Councillor Wilson. Those voting no. Councillor Alexander, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Donnelly, Councillor Paul Duffy, Councillor Sarah Duffy, Councillor Hockey, Councillor Hockin, Councillor Lavery, Councillor Mackle, Councillor Ashley Mallon, Councillor Jude Mallon, Councillor McCartan, Councillor McConville Walker, Councillor Nelson, Councillor O'Dowd, Councillor O'Hanlon, Councillor O'Keehan and Councillor Kevin Savage. Okay, members. We move on to our next notice of motion at this point. Can I have the proposer, Councillor Scott Armstrong, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I bring this motion this evening to highlight the significant objections to the announcement of digital IDs by the Labour government in September 2025 of this year. The proposed digital ID scheme for those living in the UK, according to the Prime Minister, is to help combat illegal working for illegal migrants, a significant factor in driving the illegal boat crossings across the Channel, while making it easier for the vast majority of people to use vital government services like driving licences, childcare, welfare, and also while streamlining access to tax records. Well, Mr Prime Minister, I say what a load of rubbish. Can this Labour government be even more out of touch with its people? This is not what people voted for in the last general election, and it's pertinent to remember that the Labour government made no mention of introducing any sort of scheme or a digital ID scheme during the electoral mandate. This scheme is not about controlling and punishing illegal working and illegal migration. It is about controlling and punishing those of us who are here legally and working legally. Unless I am mistaken, we already have forms of identification that allow us to work and access government services, and that is our national insurance number, along with other government-issued photographic identifications. Tackling illegal entry into the UK lay at our borders and in enforcement, not in adding another layer of bureaucracy for ordinary citizens. I believe that this is significant government overreach to target the few by punishing the many. Whilst I do acknowledge that we are moving further and further into a technological age, digital IDs are not the solution they may very well be the problem. There are serious questions that remain over those who may not have access to digital technologies, such as our elderly population. This will lead to further disenfranchisement of those who are most vulnerable in our society. There are also legitimate concerns about data security. The government have not demonstrated that such sensitive information can be safely stored or that it would not be vulnerable to leaks, abuse or hacking. Only recently we have seen how online systems can be impacted by cyber attacks on a large scale. When we look at our health service and when we the airports in the last number of months, when those systems go down, it causes significant problems. Personally, for me, the most worrying aspect of this is the mandatory element of the digital IDs. The authoritarian tone of forcing people and coercing people to get digital IDs is deeply concerning. During the COVID-19 pandemic, it was the DUP who voted against COVID passports on the basis that it was discriminatory, encouraged exclusion, and created a shift in the relationship between the individual and the state. Those concerns are relevant now as they were then. In conclusion, Lord Mayor, my motion states that this Council opposes the proposed introduction of digital IDs by the Labour Government, recognises significant objections to the proposals around issues such as security of private data, government overreach, the disenfranchisement of those uncomfortable with digital platforms, and commits to writing to the Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer outlining our opposition to digital identification and urging him to withdraw the proposal. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Does your proposal have a seconder? Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, thank you. Just to obviously second my colleague Councillor Armstrong's motion, obviously as a co-signature to it, I'm in full agreement, and I suppose to expand on my thoughts on it, when we look to the past year to August 2025, the National Cyber Security Centre dealt with 204 nationally significant cyber attacks against the UK, which was a rise from 89 in the previous year. And a lot of conversations I have had with people do focus along the lines of how secure their data would be in these circumstances, and I know people have concerns, and rightly so. We look to industry even, where large vehicle manufacturers have been completely devastated by cyber security attacks on their businesses, and governments also have right across the world been subject to significant attacks which have been quite debilitating for their departments and ultimately have created issues around data control for citizens. So I also speak, of course, for those who are digitally disenfranchised, those who struggle with technology. I help them every day of the week. Governments are moving, at pace in terms of interactions to people's wider benefit through government portals, through gateways, and for those who, like the elderly, like those who just aren't proficient in the use of IT, it's a huge problem, and I see this becoming a more significant issue with proposals such as this from the Labour government, and I would be in full objection to any such plans and completely support the motion in terms of highlighting that with the Labour government. Thank you.
Councillor Sarah Duffy.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I thank my DEA colleague for bringing this motion tonight. I am not a British citizen, Lord Mayor. I never have been, and I never will be. The Good Friday Agreement protects my right to be an Irish citizen, and that right must be respected in full. No matter how the British Prime Minister tries to present this, the proposal for a British digital ID is completely at odds with the spirit of the Good Friday Agreement. That agreement was about recognising and respecting who we are, the right to be Irish, British or both, and to be accepted as such. For Irish citizens living here in the North to be compelled by a British government to carry a British digital ID card is not only absurd, it is deeply disrespectful. It undermines the rights and identity of Irish citizens who have chosen to live under the protection of an international peace agreement. This isn't about resisting change or technology. It's about ensuring that no government of any stripe can dilute or disregard the identity of people in this part of our island. At a time when families are struggling, when health services are under pressure, and when communities are crying out for investment, the focus should be on improving people's lives, not creating confusion or division over citizenship and identity. While Sinn Féin agrees with the motion before us, Our opposition runs deeper than that. The digital ID threatens the rights that were hard won in the Good Friday Agreement, rights that belong to every person on this island. Sinn Féin will always defend those rights, and we will always stand up for the right to identity, equality and respect that are central to our peace process. All that being said, Lord Mayor, happy to agree with the wording in front of us. Thank you.
Councillor Claire McConville-Walker.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Armstrong and Alderman Wilson for bringing this motion here this evening. And just to echo some of the thoughts of my colleague here, Councillor Duffy, I just want to make a few points as to why I support this motion. So in the midst of disagreement in this chamber tonight, it's good to see some agreement on this. The Good Friday Agreement guarantees the people of the north of Ireland the right to be accepted as Irish, British or both. The digital ID scheme threatens to erode trust in governance, and it undermines the rights under the Good Friday Agreement. This isn't just a privacy issue. It's also about the North's unique post-Brexit reality, bound to both UK and EU markets under the Windsor Framework. A Westminster-imposed ID risks disrupting cross-border trade, complicating workers' lives and deepening divisions, all while sidelining the Irish identity protected by the agreement. With recent polls showing growing support for a border poll, this top-down scheme exposes London's disconnect from our needs and ultimately strengthens the case for a united Ireland. We believe the British Prime Minister's proposal for a mandatory digital ID card is ludicrous and ill thought out. So let's send a clear message from this chamber. Our communities here deserve solutions that unite, not divide. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Thomas O'Hanlon.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Digital ID cards won't stop the boats. They'll not stop illegal or indeed legal immigration. They'll just stop common sense. If this so-called Labour government are really worried about those working in the black economy, why don't they invest in clamping down on the mistreatment and exploitation of low-paid workers, many who happen to be immigrants? I think it was Councillor Armstrong earlier said that we already have the national insurance number. We all have passports, and we don't need new techie, costly gimmicks. And to brand these as some sort of Brit card, that's just tone deaf, and it's grotesque. It fails to recognise the complexities of this place, of Northern Ireland and its people. It ignores it ignores the lived reality of dual identities, cross-border lives, and the delicate balance that we've fought to preserve. It fails to recognise those of us who are Irish, who carry an Irish passport and no other. This isn't immigration policy. It's theatre. It isn't about policy. It's about politics. The digital ID card scheme is a desperate attempt to out Nigel Farage. It won't stop the boats, it won't fix an asylum system that is broken, and it certainly won't make borders any safer. It's propaganda dressed as policy. I'm happy to support the motion.
Okay, I call Councillor Jessica Johnson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to the proposer of the motion as well. I just want to put on record my party's opposition to the UK government's proposals for a UK-wide digital ID card scheme that people need in order to prove their right to work. As has been said, right to work checks, visa controls and employer liability rules already exist, and people have a right to go about their daily lives without infringement, and no one should be criminalised just because they don't want to hand over their private data. There is the blatant issue of practicality and day-to-day living here in Northern Ireland. Many people travel north and south to work every day, so like we often see with UK legislation that is applied to Northern Ireland, none of the everyday realities appears to have been thought through. So the gimmick from the Labour Party is clearly tone deaf and out of touch, and it would only further isolate those in society who are digitally excluded already, and would put further barriers in the way of those people accessing employment. And at a time when public services are already struggling and public finance is so constrained, the UK government would be much better focusing their time and energy investing the money to be proposally spent on this scheme elsewhere. So we support the motion. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Keith Radcliffe.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Again, can I thank DUP colleagues, Councillor Scott Armstrong and Alderman Gareth Wilson for this motion, which I support here tonight. If the government are truly committed to stopping illegal crossings, direct measures are required to stop boats in the channel before people reach the UK shores. Quitting the European Convention of Human Rights would be the first logical step. Freezing non-essential immigration would be the second, and immediately deporting those who arrive illegally rather than accommodating them in hotels will be the third step. I share people's genuine concerns about the proposed centralisation of personal data. Collecting and storing all citizens' personal information in one digital system carries clear risks of misuse by the government and data breaches by hackers. Most important, the introduction of digital IDs will have ramifications for civil liberties that we all enjoy and must be resisted. The TUV is clear. This is a cynical ploy to fool voters that something is being done about illegal immigration, when the reality is that there are genuine fears that this will infringe further on the freedoms of UK citizens. That said, the digital ID debate raises another equal serious question regarding the constitutional integrity of the United Kingdom. Digital ID is a national matter. There can be no Irish-Sea border ID border. I'm glad that my party leader will oppose the scheme's introduction in Westminster. But there must be no question of yielding to Sinn Féin's anti-British agenda by accepting Northern Ireland from a UK-wide system. Doing so would create a dangerous two-tier approach to citizenship, one for Great Britain and another for Northern Ireland. I caution union colleagues in this House tonight our legitimate concerns over ID cards must not be exploited to drive yet another wedge between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. We must not allow constitutional integrity to be undermined for political convenience. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Kyle Murtry.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Members, it's good to see some degree of unity with this motion here before us. Similar to most in the chamber tonight, I will be supporting the motion that's before us. Already, we've seen a damning critique of the Labour government, and that even includes from its very own sister party, the SDLP. So that shows you where we are, how far we've come. At its very core, members, this debate is about trust. Trust in a government that wants to collect and store more of our personal data than ever before throughout the course of history. Yet, week after week, that trust continues to fade. We've already seen the Labour government cast aside pensioners. We've seen them betray our farming community. We've seen them pile insurmountable pressure on small businesses that just want to make a living, just want to get by. And now they want us to hand over our most private information to be stored in yet another government database. Only last week, members, a few days ago, we saw a prolific sex-offending illegal migrant released from prison by mistake. That's a catastrophic error by someone who sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl. If this government cannot competently manage something as serious as that, then how on earth are we expected to trust them with the digital identities of millions of law-abiding citizens? Keir Starmer's rationale for digital IDs and this proposition before us is that it will control illegal immigration by making it harder for those without legal status to find employment in the United Kingdom. He's not looking at stronger border enforcement. He's not looking at efficient deportations, as you're seeing in many other Western nations. He's not looking at stopping the boats that come in on a weekly basis. No, instead, we're told that everyone must sign up to a digital ID. That's his grand solution, that's his great plan. In truth, it's nothing more than gaslighting from the Prime Minister, and we can all see it. As this motion rightly states, this is government overreach on an extraordinary scale. No government of any party should be allowed to exert this level of control across its law-abiding citizens. The same invasive state that allowed Graham Linehan to be arrested at Heathrow Airport very recently for exercising his freedom of speech now wants to go one step further and to monitor every one of us through a draconian digital ID system. Some will oppose digital ID here tonight purely on the basis that they don't want a so-called Brit card, and that's the sole basis of their argument. But for many of us throughout society, this is about something far more important. It's about preserving our freedom, our privacy, and our right to live without constant government oversight. I support the motion as it stands. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, can I call on Councillor Scott Armstrong to whine, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to the Chamber for supporting me with this motion, even if we have our differing reasons as to why we are supporting this the motion and not supporting digital IDs. This motion wasn't about the constitutional status of citizens within Northern Ireland. It wasn't about what you identify as Northern Irish, British, Irish, or whatever you want to identify yourself as. This is a bigger story than that. This is about government overreach and government control over what information they possess on you, what you can do with that information, and about about stopping illegal immigration. They're not going to achieve that by a digital ID. And I want to ask the parties that have mentioned that they are against this on the basis of a Brit card or the Good Friday Agreement or their status as a citizen. If this was implemented by the EU or if it was implemented by the Irish government, how many of you would sign up to it? Because I can guarantee you today that you would sign up to it in the morning if your EU overlords told you had to do it. So look deeper into yourselves on what this is actually about. This is not about your constitutional status, what do you identify as. It's about government overreach, it's about government failures, and about how we as a society should not be letting government dictate what our personal data they do with it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Armstrong, nearly worked yourself into division there. Anyway, can I take it? Can I take it quickly? We're all agreed. Thank you for that. Okay, members, moving into confidential business. Can I have a proposer and secretary to go into committee for consideration of confidential terms of business? Proposed by Councillor Ms O'Dowd, seconded by Councillor McClelland, and agreed. Members and listeners to the audio feed, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into a confidential section of Council. This means we'll be turning off the public audio feed of the meeting. This will be turned on when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask ICT officers to turn off the feed and confirm with me Thank you. Can I have a proposer and a seconder to adopt the decisions taken in committee? Proposed by Councillor Sarah Duffy, seconded by Councillor Scott Armstrong. Thank you. And agreed. Okay. Agenda item 11 is AOB, and Councillor Nelson is going to speak in relation to signage on the M1 for Oxford Island. Okay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for allowing me to bring this item forward. Lord Mayor, I suppose my request has two aspects to it, and I have been making inquiries about this since May. And unfortunately, up until this evening, we have been no further on. So my request, I suppose, is to get the signage that has become an eyesore on the M1 for Oxford Island removed as quickly as possible, and that to ask officers to bring back a report that outlines options for the replacement of that signage, be it on the M1 itself, just off the M1 on the roundabout, and if officers could bring different size options, etc. forward so that members could consider it. Thank you for your time on this, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Peter Herr.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor, and again I would like to second that there. As I said, I met with DFI last week about other road signs in Lurgan, and I actually brought this up last week, and the money that we're talking about to do the signage was absolutely ridiculous. So I would like to bring it back to the next committee, and we get prices and stuff, because, as I said, the actual sign is down now. I think the first hurricane, or not hurricane, the first storm took half of it, and then Amy took the other half. So it actually it looks better now without it, because
Still
you know, so so I would like to second it. Thank you very much.
Mark. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, content to agree. I remember this came up a couple of years ago, not just regarding Oxford Island sign, but I think there was a sign as well damaged on the carriageway regarding, I think, heading towards Armagh City. And DFI said, yes, it's a DFI sign, but if you just want to replace, council could pay a huge six-figure amount for each sign, which seemed outrageous at the time, and it's even more outrageous if they're sticking to that. Oxford Island's a very important spot in nature conservation area in this borough, so it's important that it has appropriate signage. So hopefully DFI have reflected on the position and we can come to a better arrangement, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Lafferty. I would agree with all the comments made tonight. This sign has been an eyesore for years, if not nearly a decade, and it's on the main motorway passing Lurgan, and somebody needs to take responsibility. Can I ask that the report brought back as expedited and we have it to committee as soon as possible, please, to try and get some movement in somewhere other in relation to... Okay, everyone agreed? Okay, members, that concludes tonight's business. Thank you for your cooperation, and safe home.